Flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic which is one nation, God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so welcome to the October 13th, 2020 Tiverton School Committee meeting. Mrs. Palish has been delayed on business and apologizes, and Mrs. Pavo is going to be a little bit late and apologizes, but I expect she'll be here shortly. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Just stay with. More information on this when we talk about reopening, but we're almost at 100% full in person. However, we still have 22% of our families who have chosen distance learning, and we were in hybrid, and our system continues to be fluid. We can toggle between any three of these at any moment, and I give our administrators and our teachers a great amount of credit to be able to do that, to be able to function in these systems, and all the things that have gone in place to put them in, to allow us to be successful. And then at the bottom, you see some of the things that are allowing us to be in session right now. And again, I won't go in depth with these, but the safety protocols that we have in place, the teacher PD that we're doing this year, the technology that's working exceptionally well, how we're feeding kids, how we're moving kids on and off buses, through the hallways, all these things, how we're working on the social emotional needs. So this goal will continue to be evaluated and measured as the year goes on, but I'd like to think we're totally prepared right now, and certainly prepared for any changes that may come at us during the school year.
Dr. Sankiani, before you move on, question for you. I know most of this is pretty much logistical, with the exception of the final bullet, preparation for social and emotional needs. Is that something that's going to be discussed in more depth when we go through the individual school plans?
Not particular in all the school goals, so to say. However, we could certainly discuss with you. You may recall we did some training with our staff in our first 3 days in August. We did training around trauma and being prepared to work with students who face trauma in the home or trauma because of COVID and things of that nature. We put things in place to identify our students, and all of our principals could talk about identifying students who are in need and how we're supporting them and connecting them to the right people who could support them. And we continue to evaluate this as the need goes forward. As you know, we have a screening that just took place, a social emotional needs screening for all students. We do the signs of suicide screening. We have the document up there where students can report things to us anonymously. So, we have been preparing and executing to meet the social emotional needs of our students.
Okay, thank you.
But feel free to ask any of the principals, though, how they're doing it specifically at their school. They are certainly prepared to address that. Okay, Dave, let's move to goal 2. And here we're talking, you heard me reference the professional development in goal 1, but here we really give the specifics behind this. And this is really ideal to propel the school system forward. We all know that the main determinant of student success is the ability of the teacher in the classroom. And we want to really accentuate what our teachers can do in the classroom. So this year, our K-4 students are taking, and I'll put in parentheses, a course called Using Technology to Advance Student Achievement. But it's the same course that all of our 5 through 12 teachers took last year. So at the end of the year, we would have trained our entire K-12 staff on using technology. And certainly it was so timely last year when we were working on it with the 5 through 12 staff. And it's time to really get our elementary teachers caught up with this. At the 5-12 level, we're putting them, again, parentheses, a course called Teaching Strategies to Improve Student Achievement. And again, we feel really fortunate to be able to bring this course to Tiverton and get some high quality trainers who are working with us and delivering this. And we expect then our teachers to use this as a way to improve their instruction in the classroom. And you can, sort of forecast, or I'll preview for you that next year, the elementary K-4 teachers will have that. So over 3 years then, we would have trained the entire faculty on using technology and the other course, Teaching Strategies, all geared toward improving student achievement. So we feel fortunate with that. There's still some ongoing training around the implementation of Wit and Wisdom. That's our new literacy program we put in place for the first time last year and continuing this year. So again, we feel like we've got a high quality, systemic, ongoing PD. These are the things our teachers will be doing on those full day release days. There's 5 of them in the statewide calendar. It was also the work we were doing at the beginning of the school year. And again, throughout the school year, when you align your PD that way, where it's not just one topic every time, when you have consistency, I feel like our staff will really benefit from it. Okay, Dave. In goal 3, we are going to, we've talked about this, and this is a collective effort here. So this is the school committee, the administration. We're going to incorporate our teachers. We actually had our first teacher advisory and parent advisory council meetings today, and I already was discussing this with them about the importance of the FY22 budget. And you've all seen the cut sheet, the positions we've lost, and it's painful. It's a different educational system this year than last year. There's we've used almost $900,000 in one-time revenue to balance. So we know going into FY22, we're really going to need to work with the town and evaluate resources and really look at, how we're going to maintain a high quality educational system. And, the goal here is to achieve what I'll label a level service budget. And what I mean by level service is take everyone we're employing this year, move them ahead to next year, meet all our fixed and mandated costs for special education, transportation, and energy. And I believe if we can do that, which is going to take some significant revenue, we're going to be successful. So this is a joint effort goal here, but certainly I hold myself responsible for most of the work behind this.
Dr. Larkin? Dr. Larkin?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, Mrs. Black.
I'd just like to mention that tonight on the town council agenda, since I still am the town council liaison for a few more minutes, that they have a resolution coming up from the League of Cities and Towns about the maintenance of effort. So let's just keep our eye on that. You know how they, some of the members didn't want to give us the maintenance of effort this year. And if they go below that, it will be in big trouble. So just keep our eye on that, because they're going to have that tonight on the town council agenda. And I spoke to someone about it, and they said it was only when the state doesn't pay their share, you know, how the town has to make it up. But still, in all, we'll still be losing. And so we have to keep our eye on the League of Cities and Towns. You know, we had mentioned the School Committee and League of Cities and Towns joining forces and collaborating and working together, which we always thought would be a better idea, but that's not the way it's going. So I just wanted to mention that. And we can watch that meeting. It's on tonight after hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Black.
Hey, Dave, let's
You're
move
welcome.
goal 4. Right. So goal 4, we've been talking a lot about writing, and you've heard me say what a gateway skill this is, how it's important for students to be able to write and to write effectively. And so here we want to continue to move that forward by having common writing assignments in every grade or course offered in the system. This gives our teachers the chance to look at the prompts and to analyze the data, because they're teaching the same content and they're getting the same assessment, and they're able to look at it that way. Again, if we have a detailed rubric for all of our writing standards and we link it to what's required on the SAT, or link it to what's required on RICAS, we'll be able to build our students' skills that way also, and certainly, you know, raise our scores, which isn't the underlying goal behind this. The underlying goal is to allow students to master concepts and skills, because we know when they write about it, we have a greater success rate in doing that. And goal 5 is, this is a carryover goal. You heard me speak about this last year. We had just teed this up last year and want to continue it this year. We want to have a comprehensive bullying prevention and intervention plan. We've put some initial steps in. Again, you've seen the online bullying prevention and intervention form that anyone can use to give us information. We are looking at the research. We want to bring in some programming at all 3 levels so that we can continue to educate our students about this. We want to open the lines of communication. All tied in here. Again, we also, I think, is a big part of this is bringing back the counselor, Cheryl Cole-Waite, who works with students and is also able to have some of those communications and also work with students who may have experienced some of these. So we will present this to the school committee sometime in the spring, but we got some early work done on it already. So those are the 5 district goals. I appreciate the opportunity to go through them this evening, because shortly, as you see, our 5 principals all teed up, ready to go tonight to present their school improvement plans. The key thing about this is to have a district goal, a district plan, to have a school improvement plan so they're connected to the district plan, and then to have our teacher goals connected to our school improvement plan and to the district goals. When we can do that, we can align the district, we can align resources, we can align professional development, we can have consistent conversations at all 3 levels, and really promote a professional organization and a professional practice. So I look forward to your positive vote on these goals.
Okay, I'm going to open up the floor for discussion. I don't see Mrs. Pavo here yet. Mrs. Black, questions?
No questions. I think the alignment with all the schools is going to be positive, and the common goals, and the bullying, of course, has been very important to us as a district. We have the Name and Claim It, Stop It that won the national award that year. We had the whole day with different songs every hour about, if you know, Stand By Me and all that. It was amazing, and I'd like to bring that back again in full force the way we had it, and that Student Assistance Council that Dr. Santioni mentioned will know exactly how to do it. The Peer Helping Network and all those kids, and it'll be really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Black. Mrs. Farnworth?
Thank you. Dr. Santioni, for the most part, I understand and completely agree with your goals as laid out. I do have a concern over goal number 3 on how we are expecting this to be a school district goal to achieve the budget that prevents any further reductions to personnel. Certainly, you have a role in that as well as your administrative staff. And obviously the school committee has a huge role in that. I'm still struggling with its applicability as a quote unquote district goal.
I understand, Ms. Marks, but I just think it is really going to be a community effort here to get that. And so we have so many staff members who live in Tiverton that I think we need to call upon this year. I think there's all of our administrators are going to need to be able to speak cogently about the needs at their school, what they've lost and what they have to preserve. In all these presentations, and I'm going to have to call upon Ms. Delcourt to do some amazing videos and some amazing PR. So I think it touches all of us this year. And we have to, I think we cannot settle for anything less than a level service budget. And I think, by setting that as our goal, everyone has to pay attention to it and work towards it and do everything possible to get there. So that, that's my thinking behind it.
Okay, fair enough.
Mrs. Pavo, I'm not sure if you're able to see or hear Peter's presentation of the district goals. Any questions?
I didn't. I just came on, so I can go back later on and look at it on YouTube. And if I have any questions, I'll direct them to him, if that's okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Lane.
Any questions from any of our administrators? And any questions from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
At this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay. So I agree with Ms. Farnworth. I think we're sort of ambitious here, and I'm not sure that we're going to be able to accomplish everything, but I think this is a good place to start. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Black,
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth,
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here when you went through them.
Yep, understood.
I do have them all.
Okay. And I'm going to vote yes, so the motion passes 3-0 with one abstention. All right. At this time, I'm going to ask for a motion to move up. This is at the request of Attorney Robinson. Item 8A for us to go into executive, or sorry, 8B. To go into our executive session under Rhode Island General Law 4246-5A2, legal advice, litigation, collective bargaining, NEA, Tiverton.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, I'll have to
Do
roll
we
call.
expect this?
I expect this to be about a 15-minute, and then we will
Okay.
continue executive session afterwards.
Okay, that's good. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Mrs. Farnworth?
I do think it would have been better had we made that part of the agenda to go into executive first so that the public wouldn't be hanging, but I will say yes.
Okay, I agree. It was a request he made earlier today. I tried, so I'm going to try and honor that. Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So we're going to go into executive session for probably about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll be back.
Dave, everyone out except Principal Craven and obviously the school committee.
All right, don't anybody sign out. Let me move you all to the waiting room.
that everybody?
It is. Thank you.
Okay, we're back in open session. I'm going to report out. We have received legal advice. No votes were taken. I'm going to ask for a motion to seal the minutes.
Motion to seal the minutes. Sally.
Second,
Okay, I'm going to ask for a vote. Sally,
Yes.
Elaine,
yes.
Diane,
Yes.
I vote yes. Minutes are sealed. All right, we're up to item 5B, reopening update. Dr. Sanchioni.
Great, thank you. Want to update the committee. I'm going to show you a couple charts that we've been using to guide us through this. Dave, you got those right? You have those. Okay, this is one that's probably going to look very familiar to you. We put this out on a weekly basis, and these are our green lights that tell us that Tiverton is being successful in meeting the 5 points that the governor set for us to reopen the schools and bring all our students back in successfully. So our readiness, municipal readiness, our testing readiness, which is really the state, our supply readiness, which we've achieved more than achieved, and our operational readiness, all the things that we're doing to keep our schools safe. So just want to show this to you as a precursor to what I'm going to explain where we are with reopening. So we've got green lights. We've had green lights since the beginning of August. And now I'm going to show you another document that I think is a little more poignant at this point.
Poignant or pointed?
Both. I said poignant, but pointed's good too.
So we should be getting ready to emote.
Poignant, important, synonyms. This is an important document here. We put this out for the first time last week, and this now is something I'm going to put out on a weekly basis. And Dave, can you scroll up to the data table? There you go. So now we're going to start letting people know how our school and our districts is achieving or facing up to the COVID virus. So here you're going to see we've had one positive case. That case was at the high school. I want to commend Principal Ashley for the way he dealt with this. Student was identified, Rhode Island Department of Health was contacted. The school was more than ready with all of its seating charts in place, with bus charts in place, with identification of where this student was and what, in this case, the student was on a sports team, the connections there. That information was turned over to the Rhode Island Department of Health. They do the contact tracing. They actually contact the families. And you can see on the right side there that we actually have 30 people now who are in quarantine for the next 14 days because they came in contact with the one positive case. And contact is defined as 15 minutes, not consecutive, but 15 minutes in a time frame within 6 feet of the person who tested positive. And so there you have that. And then you're going to see Tiverton Middle School has 7 people in quarantine, but this is a result of not a school-based activity, but because these students were in contact with either a family member or a parent for that matter who had the case, and they have to quarantine as a result of that. So you can see now we've been in school for 22 days. We've had 1 positive test. We have 37 people in quarantine. So today we welcome back the entire high school. So right now we were full in 9 through 12. We had brought the elementary school back 3 weeks ago. So we've been full force now at the elementary school for 2 weeks of school. That's K through 4. And the middle school, we brought back grade 8 a week ago. 5 was always in from inception. And we have grade 6 and 7 still in a hybrid model. And the only reason they're in a hybrid model is because of bus transportation. We're restricted to 35 students on a bus. The middle school is a difficult school to walk to, unlike our elementary schools, unlike even the high school where students can some walk to that. It's very, you know what the middle school is located. So we really have to provide bus transportation to these students. Obviously, these students don't drive either. And with 35 students on a bus, 6 out of our 14 buses are already at capacity with 5th in, 8th in, and 6th and 7th in a hybrid, meaning half of them are in 1 week, the other half come in the other week. If we were to bring them all in, we would bring up to 9 of our buses to capacity. And we work with the bus company to look at routes, to look at changing how can we maximize every seat, but to get our students transported and get them into school on time, we feel like we've done that. We're at a place now where we're stagnant. And so last week, Principal Craven, after we talked, put an announcement out to parents in the 6th and 7th grade saying, listen, we're still in a hybrid. However, in your off week when you're supposed to be home, if you can drive your student in, if you can work together as a family or as a neighborhood and carpool, we'll take your students. We want every student in. So I want to be clear on that this is simply a transportation until the Rhode Island Department of Health relaxes the standard of 35 students per bus. This is where we're left. So before I close, I guess I just want to come back to this chart and say that, comparatively to all the districts around us, we are doing so much better. I've talked to my colleagues and the superintendents in all these other districts. They have many more than one positive case. They have many more students in quarantine. I know part of this is luck of the draw, or how parents are reacting to it, but I also want to give and say that I think the way we're handling this with the mask wearing, with the plexiglass we've installed everywhere, with the seriousness of purpose, the fact that our parents are filling out the screening form every morning, how we react to that data right away, that our principals and our secretaries immediately are contacting kids who have to be seen, and every other precaution we are taking, I believe we are truly providing the safest environment possible. So there's our update, both on our green light from the state, where we currently are with cases, and where we are currently with educating our students. So I'll pause there and take any questions.
All right. Gonna, I guess, pull rank isn't the right word, but I'll take the privilege of going first this time. First of all, Peter, I really commend you and the administrators and the teachers and the staff and the parents and the students for accomplishing this. By way of reference, I got a survey from RIASC for committee chairs today, where they were asking different districts where they were with things, because today was the day where the governor had said she wanted everybody full in, and I was really surprised at how many districts are still struggling with this in a way that we, at least so far, don't seem to be. And many were actually talking about maybe being able to be full in for some grades by January 3rd. So good job. My question is about the buses and the 5th and the 6th grades. So the contract we have with the bus company would be that they, and I get that they may not have the buses and there's the whole capacity issue. Is this an insoluble problem? I mean, that we can't take it as an indefinite situation, I guess is my question. So what do we do to figure this out?
Yeah, well, thank you. It's 6th and 7th grade that are still in the hybrid model.
What did I say?
Again, you heard me say it's
okay.
35 students per bus, which is RIDO requirements. And you heard me say we've maxed 6, and if we go to the next level, we would max out 8. And we've tried to think about buses that have seats. Can they swing by and pick up these other students? And so we've looked at all the routes, and I know painstakingly Principal Craven has done this too, but there's just no other way to do this and get those kids picked up and then get our students to school on time. And we would be exceptionally late. So the next thing we're talking to first student about is what vans are still out there, and can we utilize some of the vans for certain areas to pick up maybe some groups of kids. So we're exploring that as our next options. I don't have answers on that. I guess I just want to express that we're open to all ideas and are going to pursue every possible alternative that would present itself to us. But right now, for 6th and 7th grade, we need to rely upon parents to help us out a little bit. And if they certainly could carpool, that would be the best thing, because that school gets filled up pretty quickly with cars, and that's another issue.
Given the proximity of the high school and the middle school to each other, is there a way of utilizing either the pathway or putting some of the middle school students on high school buses albeit they'll be at school early, but as long as we have appropriate supervision, that would be a way of getting them to school. How you then get them home, I'm not quite sure, but some way of leveraging that.
We've looked at that, and when Principal Craven comes on, you'll see her again. There's a lot of extra gray hairs there because she has created 2 schedules. In all seriousness, the problem is, you're right, we can get them there, but how do we get them home? And if we use the high school buses to come pick them up, they lose that last period every day. And in the middle school schedule, it's not rotating. So, some kid can miss math every day. It's just not acceptable educationally. We got to find a better way. And, we'll continue to pursue that.
Okay.
Hopefully there's some latitude. I did, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I did speak to the Department of Education last week about this, about relaxing the standard. So there is some conversation there. As you know, these kids are close proximity. A lot of times they are wearing masks on the bus. The windows are open unless it's inclement weather. I mean, is there a possibility to move it up to 40, which would require 5 kids to maybe sit together, or 45 or something like that. So I know that's being considered, and that might be a possible solution too.
You may need to talk to the Department of Health about that, but there's probably some reasonable justification for doing that, even from an epidemiologic point of view, given the low prevalence in Tiverton so far. I don't know. So, and of the 37 people in quarantine, I'm assuming some of those are teachers and some of those are students. Are the teachers still teaching and the students still doing then remote learning? I assume they hopefully are all healthy. They're just in quarantine because of exposure.
That is correct. That's the fluidity of our system, that people can be home and still participate in their education. So they are expected, unless they're too sick to be part of distance learning, they are expected. We take attendance, and they're supposed to be in all their classes. And the same thing, there was one teacher that was affected, and that teacher is willfully teaching from home. And those students are getting that quality education. It's just reverse engineered. This teacher's on the screen, the students are in school, and we're working the education that way.
Well, I applaud that teacher and the students. Right. Open it up to other members of the committee. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes, Dr. Sanquioni and Sue, how was this decision, or why was the decision made to hold back on grades 6 and 7 and not other grades? I know the decision on moving 5th grade forward, I understand that, but how did we come down to 6th and 7th grade? Was it a busing situation also?
No, let me take that, Elaine. So let me take you back. So when we started school, the decision was made to bring the 5th grade in immediately. They're new to the middle school, and we wanted to acclimate them. And so 6, 7, and 8 were in a hybrid.
Right.
And as our successes started and we had a couple good weeks, we said, okay, what's the next grade? Our intention was always to bring back every grade. So the next decision was, what grade will we bring back next? And the idea was, let's bring back 8th. They're moving to the high school. There's some importance of 8th. There's importance of every grade, but we made the decision that 8th grade would be next. So we brought 8th back. We had 5th then, 6 and 7 were in hybrid, 8th was back. And that's when we maxed out buses. So it wasn't that we were leaving 6 and 7 out. It's just that's when we hit capacity. Okay. So that's the position we were left in. So, we didn't want to kick the 8th graders back out, and certainly the 5th graders have adopted. It was just the way it's just what that's just when we hit capacity.
Okay. I have concerns about 7th grade only because 7th grade, in my opinion, is a grade that kids struggle in. It's when you move from what I consider still an elementary curriculum to a middle school or a junior high curriculum. And I worry about those kids that have a difficult time not being in school. And that's 7th grade. But the other thing I wanted to say was last week, I was in the dismissal line of cars at Fort Barton School at 3:30, a couple of minutes after maybe. And I'm going to tell you that that line was all the way down Lawton Avenue. And of course, it's slow. You have to wait for the kids to come out. I'm concerned that we're going to lose some of those parents that drive their kids to school come bad weather, a little ice on the ground, a little bit of snow where we're going to school. We're not at home distance learning. And then what happens? I mean, I'm hoping that the Department of Ed Gina ups their numbers by that time, but I am concerned. Lawton Avenue is a steep hill. And I know some parents are going to say, oh, I can't do this anymore. The weather's getting bad. What happens? Then we need to put those children on a bus. So how do we do that? I mean, I guess we address it when the time comes, but it's just a concern I have.
Yeah, and
I'm
sure.
I've got a lot of parents that can cooperate, that are willing to pitch in and help. But when the bad weather hits, I'm not so sure they'll all be driving up Lawton Avenue or wherever.
Yeah, I know our elementary principals share that concern. I don't even think it's just Fort Barton. I think Pocasset and Rangers share it. With the fact that, and again, it's the same thing. If parents start requesting to be added back to the bus, we cap it at 35. And at that point, then, you know, that student's going to be in distance learning if that parent can't drive them, which is the last thing we don't want. But again, we're going to continue to pursue other options.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ms. Farnworth?
Dr. Sanquioni, what's the maximum capacity for these buses? So what does 35 represent?
Half. One person per seat.
Half.
Yeah.
And you know, to chime in with everyone and agree with everyone, I think, you know, we're going to ask you to continue looking at options. You know, we need to service these kids the best we can. I know you're all trying. Has any thought been given to staggered arrivals and departures?
There has. We've analyzed that, but the thing is, we have 14 buses that make 3 runs, and so they're at capacity. You know, they make the high school run, they make the middle school run, they elementary run. If we want to have them make another run, a 4th tier, then it's a significant financial impact.
Well, so are vans, right?
But to some extent, except the vans, you know, they'll be making 1 run, not 14 buses making a 4th tier, and the buses are a little more expensive. So we're just not financially able to add a 4th tier.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And Mrs. Black?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you and how hard you're working on all of this. And I know that we need to get all our kids in somehow. And when you really think about it logically, if 6 kids are in a van or a carpooling, they're much closer than they'd be on the bus. You know, think about it, breathing on each other and everything else. So I think, again, we have to pursue this at the Department of Health or wherever to maybe expand the bus use and then look at the vans, whatever it takes, let's put it that way. We need to service every one of our families in this community. And some of them are just working and they can't provide the rides. And so we have to figure this out. And I know everyone's trying to do it. And I appreciate all your hard work. Because, you know, we just have to give all the kids the opportunity to come in that want to. And those are choose distance. That's wonderful. We're doing that. We're being flexible. I think the way we've put this together is probably the best in the state. I commend everyone for all their hard work. But we really have to get every kid in that needs to come in. Thank you.
Peter, do we have a sense of what's the number that we would have to go to be able to bus the 6th and 7th graders?
So make sure I understand the question. I think you're asking me how many 6th graders are home 1 week and 7th graders home 1 week, and how many are home
what
following week.
Would the ask have to be to ride
bring them all back in, right?
Of them?
Yeah, off week. So I'm going to turn to Principal Craven for that. I'm sure she has that exact number. At least I hope you do.
Not exact. However, I do know that the biggest problem with our transportation right now are the buses that come from the northern end of town. Those are at capacity and over capacity. So it really is a number based on where the students in grades 6 and 7 live. That would be the number you're looking for. We did explore multiple options. I know I heard you speak about the hybrid schedule and the staggered start time. At the onset of coming up with our current schedule, we did look at the option of 7th and 8th graders riding the bus, the high school buses in. What we know is whether or not there's room on those buses. And then you look at any of our programs across our school grades 5 through 8. That would be band, chorus, strings, the life skill classes, the therapeutic learning center group. So any teacher who teaches 5 through 8, those programs get ripped apart because those teachers can no longer be 5 through 8 teachers. They either have to be 5 to 6 teachers or 7, 8 teachers. So there's a huge impact when we looked at that option, which is why right now we didn't feel it was in the best interest of students to go that way either.
Okay.
The transportation, northern end of the town, biggest issue.
So I guess, Mike, I didn't ask the question the right way. So what would the bus capacity, what number would the bus capacity have to be at in order to be able to bring them all back in? Like,
for the bus 1 and 2, I would say it'd have to be at capacity, which is 50.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Well,
yeah, 35 on both of those buses. Those are our biggest, like I said, those are our biggest issues.
So is there any potential for reworking these routes so that the north end of town gets more capacity to transport students and switching it so that the south end has fewer buses because they're not as crowded?
We did also look at that option. I have been on the phone with Sherry Del Toro quite a bit last week and the week before. We explored all of those options, and it's not like the buses that come from the southern end of town aren't full. They're just not as full.
Okay.
The numbers are still significantly high. I mean, the bottom line is there's a lot of our students at the middle school who are transported to school through the buses.
Of course.
Right, because we don't have all the high schoolers who are driving, hopefully some of them anyway. Hopefully not.
Mrs. Craven, may I ask you something, Sue?
Sure.
7th grade, earlier when we first started back to school a few weeks ago, was 7th grade the grade that had the most number of students doing distance learning?
It was.
Okay, has that changed?
It has.
You know, with maybe some parents bringing their kids in or changing their minds or willing to give it a chance, sending their children all in. What I'm trying to do here in my own head is how many kids are distance learning in those 2 grades? So what does that leave us for kids who need bus transportation or parents bringing them in?
I agree. At the when we first set out to make our the decision whether or not students were going to come back all in or we were going to go into a hybrid model, a lot of 7th graders, parents and families chose distance learning. But as we opened, people felt more comfortable and confident in our ability to reopen, and so they sent their students back to school.
Right.
Our biggest issue right now is when Dr. Sanquioni asked the families to sign up for transportation, most did not. And now as we opened, more and more students were added. So I think people had good intentions initially, but then obviously your family is going back to work, you have other students that you need to transport to other places, and it isn't as ideal as you would have originally anticipated. So I think that attributes to part of our problem right now.
Right. I can understand that. Might be.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right.
And there is a comment from Jocelyn. It says our 7th grader is getting a quality experience as a distance learner. I applaud TMS faculty and administration for their efforts.
Thank you very much. That's very nice and very true. All right, I'm going to move on to item number 5C, FY budget versus actual. Mrs. Roderick.
Yes. So at the last school committee meeting, the committee asked for to see where we landed for FY20, and then sort of a recasting of the FY21 budget based on the new numbers that we were from our state and local funding. So I'm not going to take up too much time, but it as it stands right now, we have all of our entries in for FY20. The audit is scheduled to begin October 26th. We're in the process of preparing all the schedules for that. And with any amount of luck, hopefully there won't be too many adjustments. And for FY20, we will, have a surplus of about $200,000 that we could roll into the fund balance. Again, I'm not anticipating a lot of adjustments, but you just never know what the auditors will come up with. And so I wanted to, so I know I provided you folks, the committee, with a lot of detailed information. I'm not sharing it here because it's first point to throw it up here and go over it in excruciating detail. It gets a little bit overwhelming, and I know that the agenda is jam-packed today. But I did want to let you know that both for FY20 actuals and FY21 budget, we have even gone as far as allocating the regional expenses to the appropriate object codes. For FY21, we have what I would call a quote unquote level budget. That's with the state and town funding, and then the use of our fund balance and the Medicaid funds. So I'll stop right there for questions and can continue after that.
Okay, great, thank you. Mrs. Farnworth, you want to go first?
Sure. Amy, thank you for the FY20 data. 200,000 out of 32 million is pretty darn close, and let's hope after the audit it stays that way.
Right.
Great job. For FY21, we just spent a significant amount of time talking about buses and how we just don't have the capacity, given the Department of Health orders. And, I think Tiverton needs to understand that, aside from us being forced to lay off a significant number of staff, which is resulting in a decline in our salary and benefits for this coming fiscal year of about 600,000 net. Our transportation is going up by $860,000 in this fiscal year. And that's just unbelievable. And then I do have a question on special ed tuition to other districts, and I'm trying to pull it up. So in FY20, we had a $2.2 million budget. It came in at 1.5 million or 1.9 million. I guess if you combine the two lines on the detail, right? You have 55630, 55640. So the FY21 budget appears to be flat for tuition to educational service agencies. And remind me again, is that what that component is?
Those are like the East Bay Education Collaborative. Those are sort of supplementary services for students where they may not necessarily be, strictly an out-of-district placement, but they need some help with their IEPs and so forth.
Okay. but the tuition to private sources, you left the line at just under 2.4 million, which is, you know, 850,000 over FY20. Can you help me understand why that is such a jump for FY21?
Well, again, that's unfortunately that's the out of district placements, the children that are placed out of the district.
That's a 38% increase.
Mm-hmm. And it only takes one or two students to considerably skew.
I guess I would just ask, do you have full confidence in that particular number? And is it something you can take another look at? Dr. Secchione, you as well.
Actually, that number comes specifically from the region. So that is as of that number when I recast the budget was as of their September out of district placement list. I'm not sure I can get any more accurate than that.
That's always been the problem with out of district placements is we don't have control over the costs that they then assign to us.
Well, I'm questioning is how accurate it is, number one, and number two, you know, I guess it's a challenge to all of us. We have to figure out a better way.
By the IEP.
Well,
so Diana, I can put your mind at ease on the accuracy. That I know it's 100% accurate because it literally there's a document that's created, student's name, school attends, tuition, total it up. That's what we have. It's an age-old problem for all school districts. It just fluctuates immensely back and forth. It ebbs and flows. I mean, you can pick up a student who has a $300,000 placement one year. And then they may graduate out in a couple of years, but then you have a kindergartner who comes in, or remember, we're also educating 3 and 4 year olds. So it is accurate. It's just it's volatile at best.
It's uncontrollable. That's what it is. You can't control that figure. You can't decide that you're not going to provide a service that's required by an IEP. It's
Elaine, I'm not suggesting that at all.
Right.
Not at all. What I'm suggesting is that, is there any way we can look at alternatives for some of these students to bring them in-house?
Always are.
Is that ever a possibility? Do we ever try?
We do.
And is it a matter of us, you know, is it because we're going with the region that we have this kind of number? Or, you know, what is it? Why? I mean, 38% from FY20 to 21 is crazy.
So one of your questions about working with the regions and creating programs, we absolutely do that. We always look for cohorts of students that we can bring back. One example is that program we put at the middle school this year that was outside of our purview last year, and we brought it in-house. So Sarah does an amazing job with that. And we force her to do that. We're always speaking to her about looking at that list of students, where they are, and what can we do here in Tiverton, not only for cost savings, but we also believe our teachers are the best, that these kids are going to be better educated here in Tiverton. So to that part of your question, yes, all the time.
Yeah, we've had Sarah Krager here.
Yep.
Probably 4 times in the last 24 months. And, you know, in different settings, different ways addressing, you know, precisely that issue. That's, I mean, as long as I've been on the committee, and I'm sure Sally could attest as long as she's been here, and even, you know, before then, it is the issue of the IEP is defined by the least restrictive education appropriate to the child's needs, which is what it should be. That cost, when it gets out of district, can really go nuts. And that has always, you know, and that has actually resulted, it was getting some of those costs under control, some of those out of district placements, maturing or ripening or whatever the right word is, that actually did allow us to build some of the fund balance. It's not all of it, but that was part of it. And then it you know, cycles. The overall cost of our IEPs, even across the entire board in the last 2 to 3 years, has really gone up quite a bit. I think the absolute number hasn't, which was kind of surprising to me, but we looked at this about maybe 18 months ago or something like that.
It's so difficult watching these, you know, these huge numbers standing out and saying, you know, we're in a year that we've just got, what, $236,000
Hey,
added to our budget, and we've got these huge hits. And, you know, I think it's absolutely responsible of us to be talking about these things and making sure that, you know, we're all very well aware of some of the major items that are causing the swings in our budget.
no, it's this transportation and healthcare costs. That is, if we had a better way of controlling probably any one of those, and we have very little means of controlling all three of them, and you know, the real solutions would have to be at a state level, in my opinion. We you know, the funding mechanism has to be different for those issues.
Oh, I agree.
Also, if I made just a couple of points, as far as that goes, I can tell you when I first got here about a year ago that the anticipated out-of-district placement was somewhat higher than where it eventually ended up. And again, that's due to the shifting of the services needed for the students in and out of those out-of-district placements. I can also tell you that for FY20, we did have a little bit more IDEA money, grant money to cover some of those out-of-district placements, and we don't have as much available to us this year. So that's, you know, it doesn't account for the entire increase, but you know, a decent chunk of it. And again, the federal and state funding is also in flux. As we know, nobody, you know, it doesn't seem like any level has had the ability to finalize their budgets, understandably so, given the pandemic and all of that. But it's at every level, it's almost like nailing Jello to the wall. It's just, we go with the information we have. And, you know, we hope, you know, we have to provide those services to those children with special needs. And like Dr. Larkin said, it really is transportation, health insurance, and out-of-district placements for special needs children.
Absolutely.
Dr. Larkin?
Yeah, Diane still has the floor. Are you okay, Diane?
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
I
Diane.
only had one more question, Amy. How are we with COVID spending and reimbursements? Any updates there?
So we have, I have a draft. Well, let me take a step back. So for the FY21, the COVID relief funds, or it's also called the Supplemental Impact Aid, Education Aid, that application is in draft. I have to finalize it and submit it. It is due October 31st. The RIDE is looking at it programmatically, just in terms of they go through a programmatic review and then a fiscal review. And then as soon as we get that approval, we will be submitting all of our expenses that we've already spent for FY20. And right now, I've not heard of any additional funding sources that are coming through to help us with that.
Okay.
Okay, you're good, Diane?
Yep, thanks for the update.
Okay, Mrs. Black?
Yes, thank you, Amy, for such a detailed account. That made me feel very secure and happy to see all that. And as far as the history goes with all the, I call the road littered with unbroken promises, broken promises, because it was supposed to be 60% from the state we got reimbursed back in the 80s, and then it was 40% from the federal government for IDEA, and we all know it's in the 20s or lower teens, so that's the big problem. But we've even had the reps come down and talk to them about putting something in on a state level. Carol Herman had a resolution and everything about controlling the cost of these things. So we've always addressed it. But as Dr. Larkin said, it's always the least restrictive that we want to keep our kids. We want to keep them here too. But if we can't, we have to provide them, of course, with what they need. And hopefully, you know, then bring them back. And but it's always been one of those volatile things that we try to explain when we go through our budget. Like, look at our budget now. We're using some of that money for next year, which already causes us a problem, you know. So it's just like everybody has to really sit down and listen and understand that we're all trying to do our best as a town, you know, and we keep saying not us against them. That never works out. And I hope we can continue to do that. But we're in a very dangerous situation right now, as Diane said, losing all that staff. And every one of those people was hired because we thought we needed them. And as we went through the budget and the years, as I said, if we didn't think we needed someone, then we didn't bring them back, or by attrition, we left the place open. So all those people we let go were so important and so integral to what we're trying to do as a district. Thank you.
Okay, and Mrs. Pava?
I'm all set, Dr. Locken.
Okay. Any questions from any of our administrators? And any questions from the public, Ms. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Roderick. Great work. So I don't know if we have FY21, if we sort of bled into that a little bit on the
Yeah, I'm
last.
sorry. I sort of spoke about both of those at the same time, but I don't know if Dr. Sanquioni has anything he'd like to add.
No, you covered it. We just that we recast the budget, and the more detailed backup sheets will be forthcoming.
All right, and if anybody has any questions, otherwise speak now or forever hold your peace. I will move on to item 6A, Spotlight on Success, Coach of the Year Award. Mr. Ashley?
Actually, Dr. Locke, if I may interject there, we're going to hold that for till the next meeting on the 27th. That coach is actually coaching tonight.
Oh, okay. Well, how appropriate.
Right.
So I guess we'll table that. I don't know if I need a vote for that. I don't think so.
No.
All right, item 6B, 2020-2021 Employee Handbook. Dr. Sanquioni?
Thank you, Dr. Locke. And in your packet, you have a copy of a draft of the 2021 staff handbook. This had not been looked at for a couple of years, so there were significant policies that you had already voted that needed to be changed. There were things that we wanted to add in from RIDE. Everything that's changed there is in red. We're showing you this for the first time. What I'm going to suggest that was when we bring this to the policy subcommittee, along with another policy we're going to talk about shortly, have them look at it and then bring it back to you eventually to vote. Again, we feel like the things we're incorporating in this handbook are in the best interest of our staff and just setting, great working conditions, which is always our goal. And we feel like that's in there. So I'll certainly answer any questions that anyone may have regarding the red section. But again, I'd ask that this go to policy subcommittee, then back to the committee for your final approval.
Okay. So I'll open the floor to, well, we need a motion then to refer it, I think, to the policy subcommittee.
I make that motion, please, Sally, to refer it to the policy subcommittee.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'm going to open the floor to questions then. Mrs. Pava?
I have no questions at this time.
Mrs. Black?
Dr. Sanquioni, I noticed that you changed the mission statement, or did you just move it around to the vision statement? Is that what you did?
Yeah, just a move.
Oh, yeah, because I love the vision statement.
Yep.
Okay, so you're going to keep that, right? We worked hard on that.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Farnworth?
No, I don't have any questions at this time. I do agree that the policy subcommittee should take a look at it for its alignment with existing policies and any potential need to draft new ones as a result of any changes that Dr. Sanquioni is recommending. I think we need a little bit of time to go through this.
Okay. So I have one question. Peter, you implied that the changes are all to make the handbook conform with policy adopted by the committee and or promulgated by RIDE. Is that correct?
Right. Everything in there that's in red is either a policy that in this handbook, because this handbook hasn't been looked at for a couple of years. For example, we swapped out a technology policy that you put in place last year. So we're just swapping out policies that were here for the new ones. At the end of the book, we added in the RIDE standards, for the professional standards for RIDE for teachers and for our paraprofessionals. We thought that would be important for people to make sure that is front and center. And then outside of that, there's a lot of things in red. So 90% of it is that it's either a policy change that's already been made that we're swapping out into this book or putting in the right things, or on page 23, the only thing that's actually new here are two sections called professional culture and respect for others. And so I would say to you that that is the only significant or change to the handbook, other than changing things or putting in things that are already in existence.
Okay. And so, and this was something that was undertaken by you and the administrators, or were there teachers or Council 94 members? This applies to all. This applies to all employees, not correct?
Yeah, all employees. It's an employee handbook, which is why we put standards in there for our paraprofessionals and aides too. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm sorry, what was the answer to the question about, was that you and the administrators, or there was staff?
It was created administratively.
Okay. All right. And so is it something that we would have reviewed by the Council 94 and or NEA, or sort of seems if it's just well, anyway, that's my question.
My intention is always to bring it to the school committee first, and then to take it from there, which is why I asked you to take it to subcommittee, and then we could certainly set it out for other eyes to look at. But you know, you're my first audience.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the administrators? Any questions from the public, Ms. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Leggett.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to refer to the policy subcommittee. I'm gonna call a vote. Mrs. Babo?
Yes.
Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
I vote yes. All right. Thank you very much. Item 6C is school improvement plans. Dr. Sanquioni?
Great, and I always consider this one of the best meetings of the year, because this is where our principals who work really hard to improve our schools get to show you the work that they're going to be doing. And as you heard me reference earlier, you know, we have district goals. You just voted them. You're going to see a strong connection to the district goals in our principal school improvement plans. And then also, you know, again, we're going to connect our teachers to the goals they're writing there. So really aligning the district. I know they worked exceptionally hard on this. I do want to say to you that Ms. Donnelly Roach unfortunately had an appointment in Boston. She wasn't going to get back in time. So we're going to bring her back in 2 weeks to talk specifically to Fort Barton schools. But I know that at the elementary level, Principal Wardell and Principal Manny Cabral will also be able to speak to the school improvement plan at the elementary level, because the goals are consistent. So we'll start there, and I'll turn it over to whoever's speaking on behalf of elementary.
Thank you. So this is the elementary schools improvement plan, and we have jointly worked on this as well as presented to our school improvement teams and our faculty, and we've gotten feedback. So what you'll notice is our elementary improvement plan aligns directly with the district improvement plan. So our first goal is in district writing. By June 2021, all K-4 elementary teachers will execute between 2 to 3 common grade level assignments that are aligned to standards in our Wit and Wisdom curriculum. Teachers will collect the data, and they will review the progress of the students during their PLC time. The next is technology education. By June 2021, all K-4 elementary teachers will implement technology resources from the EdTech's Using Technology to Advance Student Achievement training course. This is the same training that the middle school and high school took last year, and so our teachers are very excited to do this year. The third is COVID-19 instructional models. By June 2021, we will implement live lessons in all subjects, either full in-person, hybrid, or distance learning fluid models. We're currently doing that, and I have to say, on behalf of all the elementary principals, walking into the elementary classrooms every single day, we're amazed by all of the hard work and dedication and how the teachers are balancing both the in-person and live instructional models. It's really amazing. And we're going to skip that slide because it's far in and go on to Picasset School. So at Picasset, one of our focuses is math. By June 2021, we will implement with Fidelity the Eureka Math curriculum and provide differentiated instruction to improve student mathematical growth by a minimum of 5%. One of the ways that we are doing that is, as a school, we have selected to go with Freckle, which is an online math program that aligns exactly with the STAR math assessments that we're doing. So all of the data from STAR math gets imported to Freckle, and it helps identify specifically what areas in each mathematical standard a student needs to work on to improve their mathematical thinking and understanding. Then teachers will select activities. And Freckle is based almost like on a game. So the kids are playing games, they're increasing their mathematical skills, and we're hoping that that will help translate to improving math fluency, which seems to be our main area of weakness. And then this is our social emotional learning goal, PBIS. By June 2021, we will continue to implement with Fidelity a positive behavioral intervention system called Picasset Pause Students. Picasset Pause was, it began about 2 years ago, but it was really implemented very inconsistently. A couple of months, it would be, kids would be able to earn pause. There was no really correlation between what behaviors I do in order to earn a paw. Sometimes kids would get a paw randomly. So we found a lot of kids, a lot of the same kids would be getting paws. So all this summer, I have to really call out and thank the Picasset School teachers and staff. We met remotely all summer long, and this year also. We have a volunteer PBIS committee. And we also have a principal advisory committee, and we created goals. So that way children will understand these are the expected behaviors in school. And when you do these expected behaviors, you can earn a paw, which will go into a weekly drawing. And we're going to, we've actually just finished the documents. We're going to inform the families, and we're going to begin that program next week. Are there any questions about Picasset? Thank you.
We've got the Ranger goal, Principal Cabral.
Yep, it took me a little while to unmute. So as you can see, the Ranger goal was staying with math, as well as the other goals that all the elementary schools are going to concentrate on. The entire school improvement plan was brought before the school improvement team last week, and we're looking at completing our goals and being successful with our goals. We're going to use the STAR math assessment, which we've already taken one assessment. The early indications are the students are doing well as far as the setbacks from not being in school for March. We're seeing some setback, but they're really doing well since we've been back in school. So we're going to also be looking for a 5% growth in the area of math. We're going to be looking for the classroom teachers and math specialists. The math specialist this year at Ranger is only with us 1 day a week. So we're going to be looking at that program as far as looking at skills rather than looking at what the skills that, an individual group of students needs help with rather than what's going on in the classroom. If anyone has any questions, I'll answer your questions.
Sorry, I have to get a minute or two. Any questions from the committee? And any questions from the public?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and so just to let the community know, this is something we would ask your approval tonight. So Dr. Larkin, I'm not sure, do you want to do it, approve the elementary first or do them as a block at the end?
I would favor taking them up as a block. So why don't we do the other two schools, and then we can discuss as a committee if we make a motion for the block and it fails or is not seconded, we go from there.
Great, thank you. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Principal Craven to speak about the middle school improvement plan.
Thank you, Dr. Sanquioni. The Tiverton Middle School Improvement Team met last week and we reviewed the plan and they accepted the plan as presented to you this evening. Our first goal will be to execute a writing plan in the core content and co-curricular areas across grades 5 through 8 that will have at least 2 common writing assessments. You'll see that this goal is vertically aligned with Dr. Sanquioni, his goal in his plan. So last year when we began this work, our teachers met, we finalized our prompts, grades 5 through 8, in all content and co-curricular areas. We spent time in the professional learning communities last year, calibrating writing assessments, agreeing on the rubrics that we were going to use for these writing assessments, and really thinking about what our goal was across our school, because we want students to transfer the knowledge they gain from one writing skill to the next, from one year to the next year when we're talking about their writing skills. So ultimately it's to improve writing, because we know students write more, they become better writers. Our second goal is to execute best practices 5 through 8 that align with professional development training to improve instruction, increase student engagement, and offer a more personalized learning experience to all students. Our teachers are undergoing a lot of professional development this year, instructional practices that increase student achievement, and our ELA and special educators are focusing on blended learning. So we want them to utilize the knowledge that they gain during the courses that they're participating in and apply them to their instruction in their classrooms to improve student engagement as evidenced by increased student participation in the academic progress. We know that students' STAR scores have declined as a result of COVID. So we must have a goal to increase a student STAR, standard growth percentile score, by at least 10% in English language arts and mathematics through targeted intervention and personalized instruction. So we met with our data team. We looked at our STAR scores when we administered our universal screener last week. And we have a plan to target the areas in need and to improve those scores. And we also feel as though the current TMS behavior matrix needed some revamping. So we had our social emotional team trained in restorative practices last year, and we want to bring that training to our school and change our behavior matrix system so it reflects the training and the language that restorative practices use throughout their sessions. So the development of a behavior matrix that is comprehensive of restorative practices is another one of our goals. And finally, we want to execute a plan on improving communication to families to report academic progress of our students. Last year, when we rolled out or didn't even roll it out, but when we executed our distance learning plan overnight, we found that the teachers did an amazing job, developing curriculum through a distance learning, remote learning experience for the students, executing that remote learning experience for the students. However, we got some feedback that communication was lagging. And so we want to improve that communication this year through a communication strategy that will make families more aware of how their students are progressing throughout the year. And those are TMS's goals.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Craven. I'm going to open up any questions from the committee. Mrs. Black?
No.
Ms. Pavo?
I just want to say that communication, that's very important. That's like my number one. Communicating will get you where you want to go. And I think that it's very important. I hope parents appreciate how you're working on that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Farnworth?
Mrs. Craven, thank you for putting that out. And you made it very, I can align the district's goals to your school's goals quite easily. And thank you for doing that. Can I have a quick go back to the elementary though?
Absolutely.
Before we get too far down the road here. On the elementary, I know the district goals spoke to writing, and that was really the only quote unquote academic target in the district goals. And in the K-4 district goals, it speaks to writing holistically for K-4, but at the individual school levels, it was, at least in the two schools that presented tonight, I'm not seeing that. And I'm seeing math quite prominently put out there. And while I agree, our district probably needs a lot of attention to math, it wasn't in the district goal. I'm just trying to understand how this waterfall is really taking place at the elementary level. And that's to anybody who wants to answer.
Mr. Cabral, Mrs. Wardell.
Sure.
You could arm wrestle over who gets to answer.
Yeah, so the first three goals are the unified goals for all three elementary schools. And then what we've done is we wanted to try to individualize the school improvement plan to the needs of the school. So specifically at Pecasset, we've seen a very big decline in achievement in math. And it's been significant, and it's something that teachers are very aware of. They're very concerned about. Parents are concerned about it. So that's the reason why we created a math goal. And then for the PBIS, obviously we wanted to address the social emotional, especially because Pecasset School has had a high turnover in administration. So coming in new, looking at it with fresh eyes, we really wanted to make sure that we can work on the operational as well as the culture and climate of the school and improve it all together.
And I do see that. And I see how that does align to one of the district goals. And I agree completely. Dr. Sanquioni, I'm wondering if perhaps the district goal should not have included something to speak to math.
The district goals certainly never encompasses all the work that we're doing. I mean, if that was the case, I'd be sending you hundreds and hundreds of goals. So it's not that just because it's not on my goals, it's not a priority. It's not something we pay attention to. It's not something we analyze and look forward to. But certainly if the committee wants to see something articulate, I'm happy to add it.
One thing I'd like to add for Ranger, but we've been very stable at Ranger administratively as well as teacher-wise. But I think we look at data, but our ELA reading data has always been strong at Ranger, and that's why we concentrate more on math. It's not that ELA is not important. We do pretty well with the ELA in STAR testing, in reading testing, and we're really concentrating on math because that's the area that we see that we need the most improvement with our student performance.
And that makes sense. That's just common sense, and that's how you should.
Right.
I don't know, Dr. Sanquioni, I throw it back to you. I know we already went through it at a district level, but it does seem to me that the elementary schools are saying that, they really feel the need to focus on math. And
absolutely, which is why we have their school improvement plans, and they're allowed to, move from to address the needs at their school level. But again, math it's K-12.
Mm-hmm.
We look at it, we analyze the results. You'll see my presentations regarding that all year. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the public, Ms. Delcourt? Is Ms. Delcourt still here?
I am not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
You're suddenly off my screen. All right. And I think Mr. Ashley is up next.
Yeah, the high school presentation. So yes. Dave, bring up that presentation.
I don't have Chris's. Chris, you have yours, right?
I do. Let me
You can share.
pull it up here. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for this evening. So first, just to articulate what everyone's been talking about in terms of this theme of alignment, you will see the high school aligned with Dr. Sanquioni's and the district's goal. But first, one key point I want to speak to is in terms of the foundation of all of the work towards our goals is our professional learning communities. I just highlight this because this really is the process that all of our departmental teams go through in terms of collaborating as colleagues, looking at common assessments, reviewing the results, and then going back to instruction to see how can we constantly improve. And so specifically in our school improvement team, you'll see our members there, Ms. Cusimano, Ms. Anselmo, Ms. Roy, our teachers. And then we've got a new group this year, our senior support committee of parents and students that have really been integral in terms of looking at these results and goals and seeing what areas we need to focus on. And so these goals that you'll see were reviewed by the school improvement team, by department chairs. We looked at them as a faculty. I have a student advisory group too, that they looked at them too, all provided great feedback. And so to begin, first just again, talking about alignment, our first goal is writing. As Dr. Sanquioni spoke with, we know that when students are writing, they're learning. And so we want all students to be proficient or advanced in their writing, per grade level. And so you'll see here in the notes about how this is an extension from last year. And our teachers are really working hard across the curriculum, no matter what the class is, whether it's a core academic English or science or an elective course in a technology, that the students are writing and they're reflecting and they're thinking about what they're learning and how that applies to it. And so the goal here is that we're going to have at least 2 common writing assessments per semester as assessed through common well-defined rubrics. And so again, just looking at how those students will be writing across curriculum to make sure they reflect and analyze on their learning. Our next goal is aligned to our SAT and PSAT and ensuring that all of our students learn and practice those rigorous higher order thinking skills to make sure that they're prepared for whatever their post-Tiverton High School plan is. We know that it's a new dynamic world outside of Tiverton High School, and they need to be ready for that. And so we're phrasing that objective around at least 75% proficiency or advanced as measured by the SAT and the PSAT. For the parents and community members listening tonight, due to the pandemic, last spring, unfortunately, we weren't able to administer these assessments, but tomorrow, actually, the seniors will have that opportunity to take the SAT, and then the plan is in the spring for the juniors to take the SAT and the sophomores to take the PSAT. But more specifically, all of our departmental PLCs late last spring during the pandemic and then now as the start of the school year are looking at the previous results of our SATs and PSATs and looking at the most challenging problems on those assessments, aligning those problems to our curriculum and seeing, are there areas in our curriculum where either we need to refocus or do some reteaching, and then aligning that back to instruction so that you can see, just like we talk about the district to school alignment, we also have the alignment from here's the assessments and the benchmarks we know our kids need to be at. How does that align to the standards? And then how does that align to in the classroom instruction to making sure that those kids are learning the critical skills they need? And so we're targeting that goal around formative assessments and making sure that all the students have frequent opportunities to practice those skills. And the key piece here in the instructional piece is get feedback on that learning so that they're practicing and getting better as they prepare for those assessments in the SAT and the PSAT. Our third goal is making sure we're looking at, I talked about in the last goal, that alignment of the curriculum to the standards, to then instruction in the classroom, and making sure that that's written and articulated in a clear, guaranteed, and viable curriculum. And that curriculum would include essential questions, concepts, content, and skills. So again, so that all students, regardless of the teacher they have a real clear articulated plan of, okay, for geometry or US history or biology, whatever that course is, here are the essential standards, here are the common assessments for that course, and we know that our teachers in the department PLCs are reviewing those results and then identifying positive spots we're doing well in, but then again, where are the areas that they need to go back on, either reteach or refocus. Sometimes there's some standards that we like to teach that are particular favorites, but they don't necessarily always align to the most essential standards. We know that time is limited, especially this year with the pandemic. And so do we need to refocus? And so right now our department PLCs are working on that curriculum, and we'll have an updated curriculum, including those common assessments, by the spring of 2021. And then our final goal, certainly critically important, is ensuring that all of our students are ready to learn and have a plan post Tiverton High School. And so we're phrasing that in terms of making sure that we're reaching towards that 100% graduation rate. I'm happy to say we've made steady progress in our graduation rate in terms of that mid-80s to that mid-90 percentile range, but we know that we're not satisfied until 100% of our students graduate on time and have a plan for whatever their goals are beyond Tiverton High School. And so with that too is a piece that we're using Naviance, which is the system we use in terms of all students putting in their own academic and personal goals, but then making sure we use that to align to our curriculum, that they have the skills and the particular courses that they want to pursue their goals beyond Tiverton High School, whether it is college or career, military, workforce, or training, whatever it might be, that every student knows, okay, this is my plan. I know I've got the coursework and the skills and knowledge that I need to be ready for that, so that the first day after graduation, I'm ready to pursue that plan. So I'm happy to take additional questions and pleased to present the goals this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ashley. We'll open it up to questions from the committee. Mrs. Black?
No questions. I'm just glad that you included everyone, Mr. Ashley, and their career goals when they leave. And that 100%, of course, that's our goal, to get everybody out there and on their way to success somewhere. I have other questions, but not about this one. Thank you.
Okay. Mrs. Pavo? One. Mrs. Farnworth?
Thank you. Just a couple. First of all, Mr. Ashley, nicely done, and I can see pretty clearly how it does align to the district goals, at least in the writing area, and I understand everything, the others that you've laid out very well. I commend, and this goes across the board, I commend all of you for getting the volunteers to help you with these school improvement teams, both from faculty and from parent perspectives. I do notice on the high school one that you've got 3 teachers, and thank you to them for participating in this senior support committee. Do you have any parent representation outside of this senior support committee?
Hi, yes, I do have a couple parents. I didn't put their names on there because they didn't make the first meeting, but they did let me know that they plan on attending future. So out of respect for them, I didn't put them on yet, but
okay.
I do have planned for additional parents, yes.
Okay. No, I that's good to hear. One of the concerns I've had over time is that your SIT meetings tend to be during the day, in the afternoon. And I know, as an example, the middle school ran theirs in the evening, and it was very well attended. I'm still going to ask you and implore you to consider the fact that a lot of parents do work, and that perhaps you'd get better representation if you held your meetings later on. And I'll just leave it there. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, no, actually, we talked about that. Our next meeting is at 5:30, actually. At the end of the month.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's
Yeah, and maybe rotating it is good. Yeah. Maybe rotating it's the right answer, right? So you get the best participation. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from any of our administrators? And any questions from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
A question from the pub. I wouldn't say a question, but Mrs. McCarthy, Mr. Ashley, is waiting to be let into the Zoom and said she was a part of your presentation. So she's commenting, wondering where she fits in with your presentation.
Is she under the senior projects or?
It's the one coming up.
Okay, I'll let her know.
All right. Well, I think, Dave, you can go ahead and let her in. If there are no other questions from the public, I don't believe this is a requirement of a vote. This is a management issue of the superintendent. So I commend you all. Thank you very much for all your hard work, although maybe this is the easy part. The hard work is actually implementing it, right? All right.
Dr. Larkin, I think Dr. Sanquioni was looking for us to vote, at least at a district level.
Well, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the all of the school improvement plans.
Make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Elaine, are you still with us?
I am.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Wasn't sure. All right. You're such an avid seconder. I wasn't sure. All right. Any other discussion on the part of the committee?
Just one question. Will we be voting separately on the district goals? Because I know.
We already did the district goals.
We did vote on that already?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Losing my mind today.
It's easy to get confused. That's why I have a little zapper on the back of my head. All right. So any other discussion? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Mrs. Farnworth?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So 4-0. Again, thank you very much to all of you guys and all of the people that worked hard to put these plans together.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So we are up to item 6D, senior project and community service amendments. I see Mrs. McCarthy has now joined us. Welcome, Mrs. McCarthy. Mr. Ashley.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to pull up the presentation now. And so first, I do just want to give credit to Ms. McCarthy. So thank you, Ms. McCarthy, for joining us this evening and just being available for questions and speak to some details. I also want to give a big thanks to Mr. McGuire, who is our community service coordinator. He did have a conflict. I wasn't sure if he was able to make this, the Zoom call this evening, but I did want to give him his credit. And so what I'd like to speak to is really the recognition that as we are working through the pandemic to reopen schools, we have an existing graduation requirement of all of our students to conduct and complete a senior project, and also to successfully complete at least 75 community service hours. In pre-pandemic months, I'm happy to report that all of our students do a tremendous job with both of these tasks. And actually on the community service, many of our students conduct well over 100 hours of community service. It's one of the major points that we pride ourselves on. But I think, I think we can recognize that certainly the opportunities to support and work with the Tiverton community for our students has been a real challenge. First, just out of safety concerns, but then secondly, just out of the fact that, kind of how daily life is so different during the pandemic. And so what I'm seeking before the committee this evening is a request to amend our requirement for senior project and community service. And so to be clear, we're not asking to eliminate them. So we still want to have both senior project and community service, but try to draw a reasonable balance between holding that requirement for students, but also recognizing that in the pandemic, things are more challenging, and try to help draw that balance. And so to begin with the senior project, what we're proposing is that the main points is that we pre-pandemic would have students work with a mentor in the community on whatever their topic is. And they would conduct a certain number of hours working with that mentor and working on the project. And as a mentor would help the student learn about the projects and complete the product. And so due to safety requirements, and again, just the challenges of the pandemic, we're asking to remove the items that you see on the screen in terms of we used to have a mentor agreement form, mentor hour log. The students would write some reflection statements about working with their mentor. And then there would be a thank you note and evaluation. And so we're looking to eliminate those as a requirement. But then at the bottom half of the screen, the other key aspects of senior project would remain. So a letter of intent by the student. We still plan on having judges, most likely internally, for our senior project presentations in the spring. Students would still need to conduct research and write annotated bibliographies, write their research paper, have a product. It's going to be presented digitally in terms of the presentation, but actually still present that. And so we believe that, again, this proposal kind of draws that balance between making sure our students are safe, but also still giving them an opportunity to complete the senior project, practice their writing like we just talked about in terms of school, but also just have a great learning experience. That we know our students many, many years after graduating from Tiverton High School, one of the first things they talk about is their senior project. I remember my senior project and working on and working with those people. So again, hoping you can do that. Ms. McCarthy, if there's some details here that you just want to add, I'll give you a moment to add those before I transition to community service. And just so you can see that in terms of a different format, this would be the proposed senior project timeline in terms of what the core requirements would be for that. So Ms. McCarthy, I don't know if there's some points that you want to add here.
Actually, there really isn't anything. I think you've covered everything. Basically here just to answer any questions that anybody may have about our proposed changes to senior project.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open up questions from the committee. Mrs. Farnworth?
Thank you. So if I'm reading this right, we're taking out the mentor part of the senior project for this coming year.
Correct.
In that you're only asking for the removal of the mentor for this one school year, and we'll take a look at it again next, because I really do think that having the mentors gives the students the opportunity to see, for the networking part of it, and to, get outside of their own. I mean, really, the way I see it now is that this is going to turn into a research paper, pretty much, and not so much the experience that the students have seen before. And I understand the reason for it, and I agree with you. I just hope that in 2021, 22, that perhaps we can hopefully bring it back.
Most definitely would bring it back. It is a very important aspect to this project. But of course, with COVID, we just have to be aware that we cannot ask students and their families to commit to something like this. Students do have the ability to still work on a product. Some students might be working with family members or family friends, somebody that's in their circle. Also, there are some students who do have the ability. I mean, let's face it, sometimes you need to learn how to do something. We can go to YouTube, and they're studying their YouTube, looking at YouTube channels and looking at other various ways to learn how to do the product well. So they do have some of that trial and error involved.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Black?
Yes, thank you. I know how hard we've worked on this through the years to make it meaningful for all the students, but this is a very necessary adjustment, and I'm glad we're making it early on so the students won't be anxious about it, because they've been asking, what are we going to do about that and the community service? So thank you for addressing this early on.
Okay. And Mrs. Pavo?
Mrs. McCarthy, any adjustments, changes that have been made in the senior project will be restored next year, correct?
Yes, that's the plan.
When we hopefully have a different environment, hopefully.
Hopefully, and hopefully we'll have more sections of senior project too. To address that.
Thank you. Thanks, honey. Thanks.
Okay.
That's it.
Any questions from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I think we should go ahead and move on to the community service and then take the two together, because this requires a vote, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So,
Sure.
Mr. Ashley?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So again, as we've been talking about, due to the restricted opportunities in serving the community during the pandemic, we are requesting the following amendments that you see on the screen in terms of our community service requirement. So I'm going to start at the bottom, move up. So for our grade 9, 10, and 11, you'll see the respective hours. So again, for the majority of our students, we're still saying, hey, we believe this is a core value for Tiverton High School. It's important that we serve our community. It's a lifelong skill. We're acknowledging the pandemic and reducing the hours accordingly, but we still want to do it. But then you'll see the note there about grade 12. We spent quite a bit of time talking about this, and I'm happy to report that a fair number of our seniors are already at or above the 75-hour community service mark. And so we want to acknowledge those students, but we also know that there's some students who are close, but they're not quite there yet. And primarily due to the safety concerns with the pandemic, we just felt like it was only right to waive that requirement for the current seniors only. And again, acknowledge the seniors that have already done the community service, acknowledge them. But for those students who hadn't quite gotten there yet, we just didn't feel it was right to, again, have safety to penalize them necessarily with this graduation requirement.
Okay, thank you. I'll open it up to questions. Mrs. Pavo?
Oops, no, I have none. Thank you.
Mrs. Black?
No.
Mrs. Farnworth?
I do agree with you on the grade 12 waiver because of the ongoing pandemic situation that we're in. Can you explain the rationale for the other 3 grade adjustments?
Sure. Essentially our thinking was, we don't know exactly how long the pandemic is going to last. Hopefully not much longer. But we're kind of working with, we know it's going to be at least, potentially at least a couple more months or much longer. And so we thought about this year in terms of the typical hours that a student might get in a year, and then kind of reduced accordingly. So you'll see the lowest number with the juniors, the grade 11 students, because we don't know. Hopefully in the spring, there's an opportunity for the juniors to pick back up and get some hours in. But if we weren't quite there and we only had, let's say, next summer or next school year, we wanted to make sure that those juniors were, it's kind of a reasonable expectation that they were still held to an expectation, but they would not have as much time as, for example, the current grade 9 students who were going to have, hopefully multiple years after this year to get back up and earn more hours.
Well, I guess that's my area of concern, grades 9 and 10, that we're, I mean, what are you going to do if the best scenario, right, is that there's a vaccine out there and next year's school year is all in and this has all been a horrible memory. So now, does this mean that your current 9th graders are only going to be held to 55 hours permanently? Is really the question. Isn't it kind of premature to be cutting them down and the 10th graders as well?
Yeah, we did talk about that. Good point. And what we felt like was, so in a, again, pre-pandemic, a typical Tiverton High School student would have 4 years to earn these hours. And so we know they're going to lose at least a good chunk of this year. And so I guess we tried to, honor that time and draw that balance between, all right, if they lose either all or a good chunk of this year, is it reasonable to say, all right, you still have to do 75 hours, even though prior graduates had 4 years, you don't have quite as much time, and hence why we reduced the hours a little bit.
Okay. And I'm sure you'll all encourage them to do the best they can to exceed those expectations.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We give a special recognition to those students that go well above and beyond. And again, I'm happy to report that many of our graduates do that.
I'd like to think that this expectation on community service is something that they take with them as a willingness to give after they're out of high school, throughout their adult lives. And so I just don't want to see it go away.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, it's a core value for us.
Thank you.
Okay. And that was my main question, was what Diane asked. Do you get hours for coming to school committee meetings? So any questions from the public, Mrs. Delcourt?
Not at this time, Dr. Larkin.
They didn't ask the same question that I just asked?
They did not.
Okay. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve both these recommendations.
I make that motion. Second.
Who made the motion?
Diane.
Diane.
Okay.
Diane and Sally seconded. Any additional discussion? All right, I'll ask for a roll call vote. Mrs. Farnworth?
Oops.
Yes.
Mrs. Black?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo?
Yes.
And I vote yes. So again, thank you very much, Mr. Ashley and Ms. McCarthy, and please extend our thanks to Mr. McGuire as well.
I will. Thank you to the committee. And again, thank you, Ms. McCarthy, for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we're up to item 7, announcements, scheduled meetings, reports. Something about Title IX new law. Peter, is that you?
Yes, that is. Thank you, Dr. Larkin. So in your packet, I gave you a copy of an overview of the new Title IX regulations. So the U.S. Department of Education promulgated this past summer new regulations for all public schools in the United States regarding Title IX, which is basically the sexual harassment law. So we worked with our attorneys to create a policy for the Tiverton Public Schools. Because this is, in essence, re-articulating the law that's in place, I wanted our staff to be aware of it. So I have put that out for our staff to know that it's there right now. However, we are going to make this part of the policy subcommittee next meeting for their review, and then eventually bring it to the committee for your final approval, so it can become an official policy of the Tiverton Public Schools.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And then our next meetings are October 27th and November 10th. All right. I'm going to ask for motion to go into executive session under Rhode Island General Law 4246582, legal advice litigation, teacher termination settlement agreement.
I make that motion, Sally.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mrs. Black has made the motion. Mrs. Pavo seconded. Mrs. Farnworth, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavo,
Yes.
Mrs. Black,
Yes.
and I vote yes. We are in executive session. Good night, all of you who get to leave.
Actually, Dave, everyone but the school committee and Mrs. Craven.